Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. Nobody tells you that working on an interspecies station means you'll spend half your time fixing air filters and the other half explaining to apex predators why you can't just hunt replacement parts from the supply closet. Bella had been a maintenance technician aboard Pinnacle Rest for 8 months now, and she'd gotten pretty good at both jobs. The station housed 6 different species, each with their own peculiar ideas about how technology should work, or in some cases, whether it should work at all. The Ari moth, for instance, seemed personally offended by automatic doors. "You are certain this barrier cannot simply be torn from its moorings?" Gormath asked for the 3rd time that month, glaring at the conference room entrance like it had insulted his ancestors. "Super certain," Bella said, not looking up from her tablet. She was elbow-deep in a wall panel, rerouting power to the sector's life support. "And before you ask, no, you still can't challenge it to ritual combat." Gormath made a sound somewhere between a growl and a sigh. At nearly 8 feet tall, covered in sleek midnight fur with silver streaking across his shoulders, the Armoth commander cut an impressive figure. His species were apex predators from a world where everything either ate you or got eaten, and they'd brought that philosophy with them to the stars. Hierarchy meant everything. Strength meant everything. Combat prowess meant everything. Bella's wrench slipping and smacking her knuckles? That apparently meant nothing, because Gormath didn't even flinch at her creative cursing. "Your species is confusing," he rumbled, which was basically his way of saying goodbye before stalking off to intimidate someone else. "Love you too, buddy," Bella muttered, shaking out her hand. The thing about Bella, and yes, she was aware this made her a walking stereotype, was that she fixed things, not just machines. She'd fix your coffee maker, your interpersonal communication issues, your existential dread about the meaninglessness of space, whatever. It was a compulsion. Her grandfather had been the same way, always tinkering, always helping, always wearing that ridiculous patched-up jacket that somehow survived 3 decades of workshop mishaps. The same jacket Bella was wearing right now, actually. Faded green canvas, burn marks on the left sleeve, a patch on the back that said, "If it ain't broke, I haven't touched it yet." It was too big for her, worn soft from years of use, and smelled faintly of engine oil and nostalgia. She finished the repair, sealed the panel, and peeled the jacket off. The station's environmental systems kept things at a balmy temperature that most species found comfortable, which meant Bella usually ended up sweating through her shirts. She draped the jacket over a nearby bench. This corridor was always empty this time of cycle, and headed deeper into the maintenance shaft to check the secondary filters, which was, in retrospect, a terrible decision. See? Bella had forgotten one crucial detail about Pinnacle Rest. Nothing stayed unattended for long, especially not when 3 very bored, very curious Ramoth cubs lived on station. Pip, Runt, and Fizz were Gormath's offspring, sent to live on the station as part of some cultural education exchange program that Bella didn't fully understand. What she did understand was that the cubs were roughly equivalent to human 8-year-olds in terms of cognitive development, but with claws, fangs, and an apex predator's instincts. Also, they had absolutely 0 impulse control. Pip spotted the jacket first. At 4 feet tall, she was the biggest of the 3, with darker fur and a white blaze across her snout. She approached the bench cautiously, sniffing the air. "What is it?" Runt asked, tumbling over his own feet in his hurry to investigate. He was smaller, scruffier, with mismatched ear tufts that made him look perpetually surprised. "Soft species thing," Pip said, poking the jacket with one claw. Smells like, like Bella, Fizz yipped, the smallest and most excitable of the group. Her silver-tipped tail wagged frantically. Bella smell. Bella thing. Now, in Armoth culture, taking another warrior's gear was complicated. It could mean anything from a friendly sparring invitation to a blood feud, depending on context, intent, and about 50 other factors that required a cultural anthropology degree to parse. But cubs? Cubs just saw something interesting that smelled like their favorite soft species friend, and they wanted it. Pip grabbed the jacket in her teeth and pulled it off the bench. It was almost as big as she was, dragging on the floor as she trotted away. Runt seized one sleeve, Fizz grabbed the other, and they disappeared into the ventilation network like furry little thieves, chittering excitedly about their prize. Bella emerged from the maintenance shaft 20 minutes later, covered in dust and questioning her life choices. The filter had been clogged with something that looked disturbingly biological, and she'd had to physically crawl into the housing unit to clear it. Her shoulders ached, her knees hurt, and she really wanted her jacket because the corridor suddenly felt freezing. Except her jacket wasn't on the bench. She looked left, looked right, checked under the bench, because maybe it had fallen? But no, the jacket had clearly grown legs and wandered off, which was a new and exciting maintenance problem that definitely wasn't in her job description. "Okay," she said to the empty hallway. "Okay, this is fine. Totally fine. Someone just stole my dead grandfather's jacket off a bench in the middle of nowhere. This is a perfectly normal thing to have happen." She pulled up the station's security feed on her tablet, rewound the footage, and watched 3 Armoth cubs make off with her property like it was the heist of the century. And despite everything, despite the sentimental value, despite the irreplaceable patches, despite the fact that this was literally the only thing she owned that mattered, Bella started laughing. Because, of course, it was the cubs. Of course it was. She checked their usual haunts. The observation deck, empty. The rec room, nope. The environmental gardens, definitely not. Finally, she tracked them to their family's quarters in the Ramoth residential sector, following the faint trail of shed fur and her jacket's distinctive oil smell. The Ramoth quarters were different from the human sections. Lower lighting, higher humidity, more vertical space for climbing. Gormath's family had a suite near the sector's center, with multiple chambers branching off a central common area. Bella found the cubs in what was obviously their den, a cushioned alcove filled with toys, training weapons, and now her jacket. All 3 cubs had somehow managed to wedge themselves into the jacket simultaneously. Pip wore it like a cape, the sleeves dangling. Runt had his head stuck through the neck hole, looking extremely pleased with himself. Fizz was wrapped in the bottom hem, purring. "Hey, guys," Bella said, crouching at the entrance to their den. "That's a good look on you, not gonna lie. Very fashionable. But I'm actually gonna need that back." 6 eyes stared at her. None of the cubs moved. "It belonged to my grandfather," Bella tried, keeping her voice gentle. "It's really important to me. Super sentimental. Like, if you have a favorite toy, imagine someone wanted to borrow it forever. That's how I feel about the jacket." Pip's ears flattened. She pulled the jacket tighter around herself and made a sound that was probably the Ramoth equivalent of "mine now." "Come on," Bella said. "Please? I'll trade you for, I don't know, what do cubs even want? Snacks? I have protein bars. They're strawberry-flavored, which I realize means nothing to you, but they're pretty good." "They will not return it." Bella nearly jumped out of her skin. She spun around to find Gormath standing in the entrance to the common area, filling the doorway with his considerable bulk. His amber eyes were fixed on his offspring, and his expression was unreadable. "Oh, hey," Bella said, trying for casual and landing somewhere near mildly panicked. "Yeah, so, funny story. Your kids stole my jacket, and I was just trying to negotiate terms of return. No big deal. Kids will be kids, right? Little rascals. Adorable, really." She was babbling. She knew she was babbling. But Gormath was staring at her with an intensity that made her deeply uncomfortable. And when he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. "You entered my offspring's den," he said slowly, "unarmed, unaccompanied, and made no attempt to reclaim your battle gear by force. I mean, it's a jacket, not battle gear, but sure." Gormath's fur rippled in a way that Bella had learned meant he was either very angry or very confused. Possibly both. "You allowed them to take it," he continued, "and now you mock the weakness of their claim by suggesting it could be traded for food." "Wait! What? No, I wasn't—" But Gormath had already turned and was walking away, his tail lashing behind him in clear agitation. Bella looked back at the cubs, who were still bundled in her jacket, watching the drama unfold with huge, curious eyes. "This is fine," Bella said again, to no one in particular. "This is absolutely fine. Nothing bad is going to happen. Everything is completely under control." Narrator's note: everything was absolutely not under control, and something bad was definitely about to happen. Bella just didn't know it yet. Bella found out exactly how not fine everything was approximately 2 hours later, when Gormath cornered her in the station's main commons area during peak traffic. And by cornered, she meant he literally stood in front of her while she was trying to eat a sandwich, surrounded by at least 15 other Armoth warriors who had materialized out of nowhere like furry, terrifying shadows. Bella said, sandwich halfway to her mouth. "Can I help you?" "You have issued challenge," Gormath announced, loud enough that every single being in the commons stopped what they were doing. "I accept." The sandwich fell onto her plate. "I did what now?" "You allowed my offspring to claim your armor as trophy. You entered their territory without weapon or fear. You offered trade as if the claim itself was beneath your notice." Gormath's voice carried across the now silent room. "This is challenge for command. I accept." Bella's brain, which had been having a perfectly nice time thinking about sandwiches and filter maintenance, screeched to a complete halt. "No," she said. "No, no, no. That's not— I didn't challenge anything. I just wanted my jacket back. It's sentimental. My grandfather—" "You dismiss the challenge as unworthy of proper combat," Gormath interrupted. "You claim it is merely sentimental. This is further insult." "How is that an insult?" One of the other Armoth warriors, a scarred female named Nethril, leaned forward. "You suggest the commander's offspring are so weak that defeating you carries emotional weight rather than honor weight. You mock him." Bella looked around the commons wildly, searching for someone, anyone, who could explain what was happening. Her eyes landed on Jolly, her friend and fellow engineer, who was watching from a nearby table with an expression that somehow combined horror and barely suppressed laughter. "Jolly!" Bella hissed. "Help!" "Can't help," Jolly said, not even trying to hide his grin now. "You challenged an apex predator. This is peak entertainment. I'm getting my tablet to record this. I hate you so much right now." "Love you too, buddy." Gormath slammed one clawed hand on the table, making Bella's plate jump. "Do you accept the terms of challenge, or do you forfeit and acknowledge your weakness?" What? Neither. I'm trying to tell you there was no challenge." But Gormath wasn't listening anymore. he'd already turned to address the gathered crowd, which had grown significantly in the past 60 seconds. Apparently, news traveled fast when an apex predator issued a formal challenge, and everyone wanted to see what would happen when a 5'4" human maintenance tech went up against 8 feet of muscle, fang, and martial tradition. 3 trials, Gormath declared. Strength, hunting prowess, combat simulation. If the human succeeds, she claims command of Ramoth contingent on Pinnacle rest. If she fails, she acknowledges Ramoth's superiority and surrenders all future claims. "I don't want command of anything," Bella shouted, but her voice was drowned out by the excited chittering and growling of the gathered aliens. That's when Commander Imri showed up, moving through the crowd with the kind of purposeful stride that suggested she'd been alerted to the situation and was absolutely done with everyone's nonsense. "Gormath," Imri said, her voice cutting through the noise. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she radiated authority like a star radiated heat. "Stand down. There's been a cultural misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Gormath replied, not taking his eyes off Bella. "Challenge has been issued and accepted." "I didn't accept anything." "Your presence here is acceptance. To flee now would be cowardice." Imri pinched the bridge of her nose. "Bella, did you, at any point, intentionally challenge Commander Gormath to ritual combat?" "No. His kids stole my jacket, and I asked for it back." "And you entered their den alone?" "Well, yes, but unarmed? I'm a maintenance tech, not a soldier, so obviously—" Imri held up a hand. "Gormath, in human culture, entering someone's home to retrieve stolen property is not a challenge. It's still kind of aggressive, now that I think about it, but not in a "I want to fight you for leadership" way. More in a "I want my stuff back" way. "The distinction is irrelevant," Gormath said. "Challenge stands." "The distinction is extremely relevant. In Ramoth tradition, allowing offspring to take battle gear and then approaching without hostility implies the challenger believes the cubs could defeat them. It is teaching moment, meant to shame the parent. There is no greater insult." Bella's mouth fell open. "That's the most ridiculous. I thought they were cute." "They are cute. Look at them." All 3 cubs had, in fact, followed the commotion and were now watching from behind Gormath's legs, still wearing pieces of Bella's jacket like the world's most adorable trophy collection. "See?" Bella pointed. "Adorable. Fuzzy. I wasn't trying to shame anyone. I was trying not to scare the fuzzy children." Gormath's expression did something complicated. His ears flicked back, forward, then back again. "You thought my offspring were cute?" "Of course I did. They're babies. Well, not babies, but you know what I mean. They're kids, small, young, with the big eyes and the—" She made a vague gesture that was supposed to indicate overwhelming adorableness. The commons had gone very quiet. Every Armoth was staring at Bella like she'd just announced she could breathe in vacuum. Nethril spoke up, her voice uncertain. "Soft species finds cubs appealing? Yes, obviously. Have you seen them? They're precious." "They have fangs," another Aramoth pointed out. "Tiny fangs. And claws. Also tiny." Gormath made a sound that might have been the Armoth equivalent of a strangled laugh, except Ramoth didn't laugh, so it came out more like a cough. "You are saying you approached my offspring because you found them pleasant to observe?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Finally, we're communicating." "And the jacket?" "Sentimental value, like I said. My grandfather's. Irreplaceable. I just wanted it back, and I figured I'd ask nicely because, again, they're kids, and yelling at kids is generally frowned upon in human culture." Imri cleared her throat. So, to summarize, Bella thought the cubs were cute, approached them peacefully to retrieve her property, and offered a trade because she didn't want to upset them. There was no challenge, no insult, and no intention to shame anyone. This was a case of humans being, well, human. Gormath considered this for a long moment. The other Aramoth waited, watching their commander with the kind of attention that suggested his next words would carry significant weight. Finally, he spoke. If there was no challenge, then the soft species will have no difficulty withdrawing the claim. Great, Bella said. Claim withdrawn. No challenge. We're all good. Can I have my jacket back now? However, Gormath continued, and Bella's heart sank. Honor has been questioned before witnesses. Challenge has been accepted before gathering. To withdraw now would suggest Ramoth judgment is flawed, that we cannot distinguish between genuine threat and cuteness. Oh, come on. The trials will proceed. If the human truly meant no challenge, the trials will prove it. She will fail, honor will be satisfied, and the matter will be resolved. Imri looked like she wanted to argue, but several other Aramoth had moved closer, their body language suggesting agreement with Gormath's assessment. Backing down now would apparently cause more problems than just going through with the ridiculous trials. Fine, Bella said, surprising herself. Fine, let's do the trials. I'll fail spectacularly. Everyone will see there was no challenge, and then I get my jacket back. Deal? Deal, Gormath agreed. Great. When do we start? Now. Of course now. Why would we wait? That would be reasonable, and we can't have that. Jolly had his tablet out, recording everything. This is the best shift I've ever worked, he said happily. I'm getting you transferred to waste reclamation, Bella told him. Worth it. As the crowd began moving toward the station's cargo bay, apparently that's where Trial 1 would take place. Bella caught sight of the cubs again. They were watching her with huge, curious eyes, still tangled in her jacket. Pip's tail wagged slightly. Against all reason, despite the insanity of the situation, Bella found herself smiling. Okay, she muttered. Let's go fail some trials and get my jacket back from the cute murder babies. This is fine. Everything is fine. Narrator's note. Everything was still not fine, but it was about to get significantly more interesting. The cargo bay had been cleared of everything except 2 rows of massive shipping containers, each one roughly the size of a small shuttle. They were the kind of industrial equipment that usually required mechanized loaders to move, which was why Bella felt a distinct sense of dread when Gormath gestured toward them. Trial 1, he announced. Strength. A leader must be capable of moving obstacles, securing territory, protecting the weak. You will relocate 6 containers from this row. He pointed to the left. To that row. He pointed to the right, which was a good 50 feet away. You want me to move those? Bella said flatly. Correct. Those containers that probably weigh, what, 3 tons each? 2.8 tons, actually, Jolly called from the observation area above the bay. He'd somehow secured front-row seating and was eating popcorn. Where he'd gotten popcorn on an interspecies station was a mystery Bella didn't have time to solve. Oh, well, only 2.8 tons. That's so much better. I feel completely confident now. Gormath cracked his knuckles, which sounded like tree branches snapping. I will demonstrate. What followed was a display of raw physical power that would have been impressive if it wasn't so deeply terrifying. Gormath approached the first container, gripped it with both hands, and simply lifted. Muscles rippled under his fur as he hoisted the massive container onto his shoulder like it was luggage, walked it across the bay, and set it down with barely a thud. He did this 5 more times in rapid succession, barely breaking a sweat. The entire process took maybe 8 minutes. When he finished, he turned to Bella and crossed his arms. "Your turn." Bella approached the nearest container and gave it an experimental push. It didn't budge. She pushed harder. Still nothing. She threw her entire body weight against it and succeeded only in bruising her shoulder. "Yep," she said, stepping back. "Can't do it. You win. Good trial, everyone. Let's wrap this up and—" "Forfeit is not permitted until attempt is made," Gormath interrupted. "I literally just attempted. Genuine attempt." Bella looked at the container, then at Gormath, then up at Jolly, who gave her an encouraging thumbs up that was absolutely no help whatsoever. The crowd of Aramoth and other species who'd gathered to watch were murmuring among themselves, clearly expecting her to fail. Which, fine. She was absolutely going to fail. But if she was going to fail, she might as well fail with style. "Okay," Bella said, pulling out her tablet. "Okay, you didn't specify I had to move them the same way you did. You just said relocate them, right?" Gormath's ears twitched. "Correct." "And you didn't specify a time limit?" "Correct." "Great. Give me 10 minutes." What Bella lacked in raw physical strength, she made up for in intimate knowledge of every tool, system, and mechanical advantage available on Pinnacle Rest. She disappeared into the maintenance storage area and returned with a hydraulic floor jack, a portable power unit, and a set of magnetic anchor pads. The Aramoth watched with obvious confusion as she positioned the jack under the first container, attached the power unit, and activated the hydraulic lift. The container rose smoothly off the floor with a soft hiss of pressurized air. "Wait, is she allowed to do that?" one of the Aramoth warriors muttered. "She's using tools," another replied. "Tools are acceptable, I think?" Bella ignored them, focusing on maneuvering the now elevated container. She attached the magnetic pads to create a low-friction surface, then used her body weight to start it sliding. Once it had momentum, physics took over. She guided it across the bay, lowered it into position, and repeated the process. 6 containers. 12 minutes total. 0 muscle strain. When she finished, Bella was breathing hard, not from exertion, but from the sheer stress of operating heavy machinery under pressure, while an audience of apex predators judged her. "Done," she announced, wiping her hands on her pants. Gormath stared at her, then at the containers, then back at her. "You used tools. You said move them. I moved them. Never said I couldn't use tools. But that's—" He seemed to be struggling with something. "That is not strength." "Sure it is. I used the strength of hydraulics, leverage, and basic physics, also known as working smarter instead of harder." Bella patted the floor jack affectionately. "This baby can lift 6 tons. Why would I use my back when I have machinery?" The other Aramoth were muttering more loudly now, clearly divided on whether this counted as cheating or as legitimate problem-solving. Imri, still observing from the command walkway, looked like she was trying very hard not to smile. Gormath's tail lashed once, twice. Finally, he growled, "Trial 1, complete. We proceed to Trial 2. Trial 2 took place in the station's maintenance crawl spaces, a labyrinth of tunnels, vents, and service corridors that spiderwebbed through Pinnacle Rest's superstructure. A maintenance drone had been programmed to evade capture, zipping through the narrow passages at high speed. "Hunting prowess," Gormath explained. "A leader must be able to track, pursue, and capture prey. You will retrieve the drone. Time limit, 20 minutes. Both of us are doing this, or just me?" I will demonstrate first. Gormath dropped to all fours, which somehow made him look even more predatory, and disappeared into the crawl space entrance. Bella could track his progress by the sound of metal creaking and the occasional glimpse of fur through the grating. He was fast, impossibly fast. The drone's transponder showed it fleeing through the network, but Gormath was matching its speed, cutting corners, predicting its movements. He almost had it twice. Bella watched on her tablet as he lunged, claws extended, missing by inches each time. But the drone was designed for tight spaces and rapid maneuvering. After 18 minutes of pursuit, Gormath emerged from the crawl space, empty-handed and visibly frustrated. Prey is elusive, he admitted, which sounded like it physically pained him to say. My turn, Bella said, already tapping commands into her tablet. She didn't enter the crawl space. Instead, she pulled up the station's maintenance network, located the drone's operating system, and started scrolling through its programming. The Aramoth watched in confusion as she stood completely still, fingers dancing across the screen. What is she doing? Nethril asked. No idea, another Aramoth replied. Jolly, still watching from above, was grinning so wide his face had to hurt. Oh, this is good. This is so good. Bella found what she was looking for: the drone's navigation protocols. With a few quick modifications, she altered its path-finding algorithm, creating an artificial safe zone signature in a dead-end corridor 3 sections away. To the drone's sensors, that corridor would now register as the safest possible location on the entire station. The drone, following its programming to avoid capture by seeking safety, immediately changed course. Bella watched it zip through the vents, making a beeline for the dead end. When it arrived and found itself trapped, it hovered in place, probably experiencing whatever passed for confusion in a maintenance drone's simple AI. Sector 12, Junction 43, Bella announced, not looking up from her tablet. Someone want to go grab it? It's not going anywhere. Gormath moved faster than Bella had seen him move before, practically teleporting into the crawl space. He returned 60 seconds later with the drone in his hand, staring at it like it had personally betrayed him. You did not hunt it, he said slowly. Sure I did. I just hunted it with code instead of claws. You did not pursue. Didn't have to. I made it come to where I wanted it. That's better than pursuing, actually. More efficient. You... Gormath seemed to be running out of words. You used magic. I used the maintenance network and basic programming. Not magic. Science. It looks like magic, one of the other Aramoth whispered. Smells like magic, another agreed. It's not, Bella started, then stopped. You know what? Sure. Magic. I used magic. Trial 2 complete? Gormath's fur was doing that rippling thing again, the one that meant he was experiencing emotions his species didn't have a good framework for. Complete, he said through what sounded like gritted teeth. Trial 3. Combat simulation. This one you cannot avoid with tools or magic. The combat simulation took place in the station's training facility, using virtual reality rigs that could create any scenario imaginable. Gormath chose the parameters: multiple hostiles in close quarters, limited visibility, no escape routes. A leader must be capable of direct combat, he said, strapping on his VR gear. This requires no tools, no programming, only skill, instinct, and strength. He was right about one thing. The simulation he'd chosen was brutal. Bella watched on the external monitors as Gormath's avatar spawned in what looked like a dark industrial space filled with hostile aliens. They came at him from all sides, armed with various weapons, working in coordinated groups. Gormoth tore through them like a force of nature. He moved with fluid grace, all fang and claw, and pure predatory instinct. When a hostile came from the left, he was already turning. When two attacked simultaneously, he used one as a shield against the other. He fought the way apex predators had fought for millions of years, with efficiency, ferocity, and absolute confidence. He finished the simulation in 6 minutes with 0 hits taken. When he removed his headset, there was something like satisfaction in his eyes. This trial you cannot trick your way through. Probably not, Bella admitted, strapping on her own VR gear. But let's see what happens. The simulation spawned her in the same scenario. Dark industrial space, multiple hostiles, nowhere to run. They came at her immediately, and Bella's avatar died within 30 seconds, taken down by a combination of knife and energy weapon. "Reset," she said. She tried again. This time she lasted 45 seconds before a hostile got behind her and ended the simulation. "Reset." Third attempt. 60 seconds. She managed to take down one hostile before the others overwhelmed her. Gormoth was watching the external monitors, his expression unreadable. The other Armoth were muttering again, this time with something that sounded like satisfaction. The human couldn't fight. Of course she couldn't. She was soft species. Weak. This would prove it. Fourth attempt. 90 seconds. But something had changed. Bella wasn't trying to fight them directly anymore. She was running, using the environment, putting obstacles between herself and the hostiles. When they chased her, she led them into narrow corridors where they couldn't surround her. When they cornered her, she knocked over equipment to block their path. Fifth attempt. 3 minutes. She still died, but she'd figured out something crucial. The hostiles would fight each other if she positioned them correctly. She'd ducked between two enemies, letting their attacks hit each other instead of her. One had gone down to friendly fire. Reset. Sixth attempt. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. The Aramoth had gone quiet now, watching intently. Bella had stopped treating this like a combat simulation and started treating it like a puzzle. She was using the environment as a weapon, triggering industrial machinery to create hazards, causing enemies to chase her into their own traps. When she led 3 hostiles into a cargo loading zone and triggered the automated systems, the machinery didn't distinguish between authorized personnel and sim enemies. The hostiles got caught in the loading mechanism and were removed from the scenario. "That's creative," Jolly said quietly. 7th attempt, 6 minutes, 45 seconds. Bella had stopped fighting entirely. She was orchestrating chaos. Enemies chased her into each other's lines of fire. She triggered environmental hazards that took them out in groups. She hacked terminals, because apparently maintenance network access worked even in VR, and turned security systems against the hostiles. When the simulation finally ended with her avatar standing alone in the destroyed industrial space, Bella had technically won. She'd eliminated all hostiles. She'd just done it without throwing a single punch. Bella removed her headset to find every Armoth in the room staring at her with expressions ranging from confusion to something that might have been respect or might have been existential horror. Gormoth spoke first, his voice careful. "You did not fight." "Didn't have to. Fighting is loud, messy, and has a high probability of injury. I just made the environment do the fighting for me. That is not how combat works. It is now." Gormoth turned to Nethril. Is this normal for humans?" "I have no idea, Commander." He turned back to Bella. "What are you?" "A maintenance technician," Bella said honestly. "I fix things. Sometimes I break things so I can fix them better." Turns out that skill set is useful in combat scenarios if you're creative about it. All 3 trials complete, Imri announced, her voice carrying across the training facility. Bella has succeeded according to the parameters set. Gormath, you challenged her to demonstrate strength, hunting prowess, and combat capability. She demonstrated all 3, merely not in the way you expected. Gormath looked like he wanted to argue, but he'd set the rules himself. He'd said relocate the containers. She'd relocated them. He'd said capture the drone. She'd captured it. He'd said complete the combat simulation. She'd completed it. I do not understand, he said finally, and there was something almost vulnerable in his voice. I do not understand humans. You are not apex predators. You are not strongest or fastest. But you do things that should be impossible. We're problem solvers, Bella said gently. That's what humans are. We're not the biggest or the scariest, but we're really, really good at figuring out solutions. Usually weird solutions that nobody else would think of. This is what makes you dangerous. Maybe, or maybe it just makes us different. Gormath was quiet for a long moment. Then, the trials are complete. Honor is satisfied. I withdraw the challenge. Great, Bella said. Can I have my jacket back now? The thing about Ramoth cubs, and Bella was learning this in real time, was that they were excellent judges of character and absolutely terrible at following instructions. No, Pip said, clutching the jacket tighter. She'd managed to get both arms through the sleeves now, and the whole thing draped over her like a tent. Ours. We won it, Runt added, his voice muffled because he'd somehow gotten his entire head stuck in the hood. Fizz just made a possessive chittering sound and burrowed deeper into the fabric. They were back in the cub's den, this time with an audience. Gormath stood behind Bella, watching his offspring with an expression that suggested he was reconsidering every parenting decision that had led to this moment. Several other Arimoth warriors had followed, curious to see how this would resolve. You didn't win it, Bella said patiently. You stole it while I was working. There's a difference. Found it, Pip corrected. Semantics. What's semantics? It means we're arguing about definitions instead of the actual problem. Bella sat down cross-legged in front of the cubs, making herself smaller, less threatening. Look, I know the jacket is interesting. It smells like me, it's soft, it's probably fun to play with. But it belonged to my grandfather. He's gone now, and this is the only thing I have left of him. Do you understand what that means? 3 pairs of eyes blinked at her. Fizz's tail had stopped wagging. It means, Bella continued, her voice gentle, that when I wear this jacket, I feel like he's still with me, like he's still teaching me things, still proud of me. It's not just clothing. It's memory. It's family. Pip's ears drooped slightly. Family important? Very important. The most important thing, actually. More important than winning? Way more important than winning. The cubs looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that siblings seemed capable of across every species. Finally, Runt pulled his head free from the hood, which took some effort and looked mildly painful, and chirped something in Ramoth. He asks, Gormath translated quietly, what you would trade for family memory thing. Bella had come prepared this time. She pulled her tool belt off and laid it on the floor between herself and the cubs. This, my actual working tools. See these? She pointed to each item. Sonic screwdriver. It makes really cool sounds and can open almost anything. Magnetic probe. You can pick up metal things without touching them. Circuit tester. It lights up in different colors. And these... She pulled out a handful of adhesive repair patches. You can stick these on anything. Walls, floors, each other. They come off easy, but they're really fun. Pip crept forward, nose twitching. These are tools? These are tools, real maintenance equipment. And if you trade me the jacket, I'll teach you how to use them. All of them. We can fix things together. Fix things? Yeah, like if something's broken, we can make it work again. Or if something works fine, we can make it work better. That's what I do. That's what my grandfather taught me. Bella picked up the sonic screwdriver and activated it, letting it hum. Want to try? Fizz launched herself forward so fast she nearly tripped over her own feet. She grabbed the screwdriver in both paws, pressed the button, and made a delighted squeaking sound when it hummed to life. Okay, Bella laughed. Careful with that. It's not a toy. Well, it kind of is. But it's also a real tool, so… Runt had already claimed the magnetic probe and was using it to pick up loose bolts from around the den. Pip was investigating the circuit tester, watching the lights change colors with fascination. Trade? Pip asked, not looking up from the device. Trade, Bella confirmed. The cubs huddled together again, chittering rapidly. This negotiation took longer, involved some pushing and what might have been the Aramoth equivalent of rock, paper, scissors, but eventually they reached a consensus. Pip carefully removed the jacket, smoothed it out with her paws like she understood its importance, and placed it in Bella's outstretched hands. Thank you, Bella said, and meant it. She pulled the jacket on, and something in her chest settled. The familiar weight, the smell of old canvas and engine oil, the patches her grandfather had sewn on during late nights in the workshop. It all felt like coming home. Now you teach? Fizz asked hopefully, still clutching the sonic screwdriver. Now I teach, Bella agreed. But first, we should probably ask your dad if that's okay. All eyes turned to Gormath, who had been watching this entire exchange with an expression that had progressed from confused to contemplative to something that might have been understanding. You gave them your tools, he said slowly. Your actual working equipment, not toys, not replicas. They're smart cubs. They can handle it. Besides, teaching them how things work is better than just letting them play. They'll learn problem-solving, cause and effect, basic engineering. Bella grinned. Plus, if they break something on the station, they'll know how to fix it instead of just calling maintenance. That's a win for everyone. You would teach my offspring to think like humans. I'd teach them to think, period. How they apply it is up to them. Gormath made that coughing sound again, the one that wasn't quite a laugh, but was close. You are very strange, Bella Human. I get that a lot. This is not insult. Strange is interesting, useful. He paused, then added carefully, My offspring have bonded with you. This is unexpected. Ramoth cubs do not typically bond with soft species. Maybe they're strange too, Bella suggested. Strange runs in families, I've noticed. This time, Gormath definitely laughed. It sounded like rocks tumbling down a mountain, but it was unmistakably laughter. Several of the watching Aramoth warriors looked shocked. I have question, Gormath said, once he'd recovered. Are all humans like this? Like what? Solving problems with friendship? Tools? Making allies instead of defeating enemies? Bella considered this. Yeah, actually. That's kind of our whole thing. We're not apex predators like you. We're not the strongest or fastest or scariest. But we're really good at working together, making friends, and figuring out creative solutions. We survived on our planet not by being the toughest, but by being cooperative and adaptable. We're pack animals who decided the pack could include basically anyone willing to be part of it. Even apex predators? Especially apex predators. You guys are great. Terrifying, sure, but great. Gormoth shook his head slowly. This explains much about human behavior in the galaxy. You do not conquer. You befriend. You do not dominate. You cooperate. You make allies of everyone you meet. Pretty much. It's worked out okay so far. This is, he searched for words, more dangerous than conquest. Conquest can be fought. Friendship cannot. Is that a problem? No. Is observation. Humans are dangerous not because they fight, but because they make others not want to fight them. He looked down at his cubs, who were now completely absorbed in their new tools, making delighted sounds as they experimented. You have made my offspring loyal to you in less than one cycle. They would defend you now. This is human magic. Not magic, just kindness, and maybe some well-timed tool bribes. I request, Gormath said formally, that you continue teaching my offspring. They will learn human thinking. This will make them better leaders. Really? You want me to? Yes. They like you. You understand them. And, he paused, something almost shy in his expression. I also do not understand humans. Perhaps I also learn. Bella felt her smile grow. Deal. We can start tomorrow. I'll show them how to fix a circulation pump. It's very hands-on, lots of problem-solving, and only a minor risk of flooding. This is acceptable risk. Later that evening, Bella found Jolly in the station's observation lounge, still watching the recordings of the trials on his tablet. You're going to watch those forever, aren't you? She asked, dropping into the seat beside him. Absolutely. This is gold. Pure gold. Do you know how many views this is going to get if I post it to the network? You're not posting it to the network. I'm definitely posting it to the network. Jolly. Fine. I'll wait a month. But then it's going public, and you're going to be famous as the human who defeated an apex predator with the power of hydraulic jacks and computer hacking. Bella leaned back, feeling the weight of her grandfather's jacket settle around her shoulders. Through the viewport, she could see Pinnacle Rest rotating slowly against the star field, home to dozens of species, all learning to coexist in a very small space. You know what the weirdest part is? She said. I think Gormath and I are actually friends now. Like, genuine friends. We're going to hang out and teach his kids basic engineering. That is pretty weird, Jolly admitted, but also very human. Yeah, Bella said, smiling. Yeah, it really is. From somewhere in the station's residential sector, she could hear the distant sound of Aramoth cubs chittering excitedly, probably taking apart something they shouldn't. She'd deal with it tomorrow. Tonight, she was just going to sit here, wear her grandfather's jacket, and appreciate the fact that sometimes the best way to win a challenge was to make everyone forget why they were fighting in the first place. Humans were good at that. It was kind of their superpower.